Being a Longhorn is pride, achievement, family. It's about belonging to a vibrant community that strives for greatness in everything. Being a Longhorn means engaging in STEM education, starting your path to college in elementary, and earning a college degree in high school. Being a Longhorn is a choice to lead, to innovate, to thrive in any setting. Here, you'll discover that learning isn't limited to textbooks. We believe in hands-on experiences that ignite creativity and fuel imagination. As a Longhorn, you have the opportunities to grow beyond the classroom, from the stage to the field. It's a great day to be a Longhorn. And when the time comes to graduate, you'll leave with a sense of accomplishment, knowing that you're prepared for whatever the future holds. The pride of being a Longhorn is something that cannot be described. It's better to experience it and feel it. This is Cedar Hill ISD. We educate, empower, and inspire.
Good evening, Longhorn families, students, and parents. We are so happy that you have joined us for this edition of the Digital Parent University, the November edition. Tonight's topic is bullying prevention. As you know, this is Anti-Bully Week in Cedar Hill ISD. So I hope that your students have, really bought into our themes, our daily themes, and practicing kindness this week. At this time, I would like to introduce to you our partners at Crime Stoppers. Ms. Juliana Aguilar is here tonight to present to you the bullying prevention presentation. She has been going around working with our scholars at all of our campuses on substance abuse as well as bullying prevention. So we're really grateful for this partnership here in Cedar Hill ISD, and we hope that you really enjoy the presentation tonight. Following her presentation, you will be able to ask any questions. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your presentation, Ms. Aguilar. Thank you, and we turn the floor to you.
Okay, good evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. As Ms. Jackson said, I am with Crime Stoppers of Houston. I am one of the education specialists that covers here the DFW area. And so today we will be talking about this really important topic over bullying. You may learn a few things, and so I'm just excited to get started and answer your questions at the end. So thankfully, our organization is sponsored by TEA. So we do work with them to get our curriculum in alignment. And so that is just a huge shout out to them for allowing their resources to just kind of pivot off of what we do. So before I do get started with what it is that I have to tell you guys over bullying, I do want to tell you guys about a tip line program. And if you did not already know, every city has their own Crime Stoppers. So if you guys live out in Cedar Hill, you guys would probably look up Cedar Hill Crime Stoppers or Crime Stoppers of Cedar Hill. If you live in Dallas, it would be Crime Stoppers of Dallas. Every city has their own Crime Stoppers. And what this basically is, it's an anonymous crime reporting system. It's open 24/7. It allows community and campus-based tips, and it is staffed by law enforcement. So what this entails pretty much is if you do not want to be in contact with law enforcement directly, this is a great way for you to report any crimes that you are seeing, and you can be compensated. So for example, I live here in Garland. Crime Stoppers of Garland allows a award of up to $5,000. Now, granted, not every Crime Stoppers is going to be those $5,000, but it can be up to 1,000. And normally, I haven't seen anything lower than 1,000. But you just may want to check out your local Crime Stoppers to see what that entails and how much it is where you live. So of course it is anonymous. So when you report, they're never going to ask you for your name, your phone number, your address, or any information that could identify you. It is by law that your identity be kept a secret. And so if it did work, meaning if your tip led to some sort of arrest or disciplinary action, if you called it in, or maybe your son or daughter called it in, and maybe they got expelled from school, that's what I mean when I say disciplinary action, then the Crime Stoppers organization where you live will give you detailed instructions on how to retrieve your cash reward and how much it will go up to. So, as stated earlier, it is anti-bullying week or your Red Ribbon Week. And so we are going to get into bullying prevention for today's topic. So before I get started, I kind of want to give an idea of what this may look like. You know, back then, it may look like just schoolyard bullying. It was done on recess, after school, before school, during lunch, during passing period. This is typically when it would be done. However, kids could get a break of it from it if needed, meaning it just happened at school and school only. Once they were at home, they were pretty much safe from anything. And it was really easy to identify. It was always done physically, whether that be shoving, whether that be hitting, whatever it was, name calling, it was always someone witnessing it hands on. However, now that looks a lot different. Because of the rise of the internet, it has brought a new type of bullying, which is, of course, cyberbullying. So now that follows you anywhere you go. It can be something that happens to you 24/7, consistently done by multiple people. And it can be more difficult to identify because it's not always done by someone directly that you may know. It could be done by fake profiles. It could be done by multiple people, and others may not know. Your friends or family may not know because they want to make sure that that is kept a secret. And it could be even blackmailed to not telling anyone. So those are kind of the differences now that we're seeing with bullying. Now, whenever we talk about bullying, I do want to talk about the different branches that come with it. Of course, physical is always going to be there. Physical, the shoving, the hair pulling, the pinching, the punching. That's what bullying can lead to, and it also could be a way of it just happening originally. Verbal, we see this when in the classrooms. I used to be an educator myself before I started doing this. And in the classroom, I would see it where if maybe a student raised his hand and asked a question, and maybe it was a question that annoyed other students for whatever reason, you could hear it under their breath and they could say things like, so stupid, this is annoying, why is he doing this? Certain things like that is what's verbal, or even it can be loud. It could be something loud that happens during passing periods. Social, this is typically when we see groups of students picking on one student. It could be pranks, it could be maybe them just excluding a person on purpose to hurt them intentionally. And of course, cyberbullying, which is pretty much done by any form of device, whether that be a iPhone, an Android, tablet, computer, or even a gaming console. So here are just some stats so you can get a better idea of what this is looking like nowadays. I do want to take the time to look at two of these and precise. Nearly half, which is 46% of US teens have been cyberbullied. Nearly half. However, more than half of bullying situations, which is 57%, stops when a peer or a friend of some sort intervenes. So, yes, almost half of students are being bullied, but it just takes that one kid to stand up for them, be an upstander, and say, hey, cut it out. If we were to have more of these students actually try to intervene, then we could probably see these numbers even rise a little bit more in a positive way to where we are not seeing as much bullying happen. So I do want to take some time to like really get you an idea of what this may look like. And so bullying is an aggressive behavior. It is done intentionally. It is repeated, whether that be every day, every other day, every week, but it's a repeated behavior. And it often does involve an imbalance of power. And when I say imbalance of power, this could be an age difference. Maybe they're older. It could be that the student is taller or maybe even bigger in size. It can also be an imbalance of power with friends, popularity levels. So this is what we're seeing. These bullies are targeting the weaker link. So of course, it's an action that results in a student harming another student, right? They want to harm them on purpose with that intention of doing something negative to them. It can result in a student damaging another student's property. This can look like maybe them taking their pencil bag that they just bought. It could be them ruining their new shoes, stepping all over them, spilling something on them, spilling something on their clothes. And it can place a student in a state of reasonable fear or harm. And so this does affect the victim mentally with their mental health because they don't know when to expect the bully to target them again or what are they going to do. So they're consistently living in a state of fear. So this is a slide that I do share with students when I go out and do these presentations at schools, not in this exact format, but I do tell them that bullying is meant to harm them. Bullying is done repeatedly and it is meant to cause some sort of harm, but conflict is different. Conflict can be a learning experience to develop conflict resolution. So I even give them the scenario of a Dallas Cowboys fan and an Eagles fan can have a conflict on which team is better, but they could still be friends at the end of the day. I like to give them examples of some sort like that because it allows them to get a better idea of what the difference is between bullying and conflict. It's just a disagreement, different point of views, but at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that they have to bully one another. So I do want to give you guys some scenarios and I want you to think whether you think it's a bullying or it's just a conflict. I can't see your responses, so just think about it. I'm gonna read it and just think, hey, is this bullying or is this conflict? And then once I get to the second slide, it'll be the same scenario, but I'll go into more detail on why it's either bullying or why it's a conflict. So the first one being Miles waits for Tyler to leave his first period class every day. Miles is an athlete and much bigger than Tyler and does not like Tyler at all. Almost every day, Miles confronts Tyler after first period and knocks his book from his hands. Tyler does nothing to retaliate. So, if you are thinking bullying, that is correct because Miles is an athlete and much bigger. So we're immediately seeing that imbalance of power and that difference in size. And it is done almost every day. So it is a repeated action. And he knocks his books from his hands. So that means that there is being something physically done. So, yes, this is considered bullying. Second one, Emma and Lisa are longtime friends who grew up together in the same neighborhood. They are both on the school softball team and are very popular at school. Lately, they have gotten more competitive at practice and grown further apart at times. They have been observed at school taunting each other and making fun of each other's families. No physical altercations have occurred. So they grew up together, same neighborhood, really no imbalance of power there. They're both very popular and they're taunting each other and making fun of each other's families. So this is just a conflict. There's no imbalance of power. It's nothing where one is ganging up on the other. It's pretty much balanced out. It is just a conflict that these two are having. Parker and Morgan go to the same school and walk home every day. One day after leaving the school campus, Parker decides to tease Morgan on their walk home. Parker pushes Morgan to the ground and dumps out her backpack. Parker is much bigger than Morgan, so it was easy for her to push her down. Morgan runs home crying. Morgan's mom has called up to the school to report that Morgan is the victim of bullying. So this one can get a little tricky, but this one is considered to be a conflict. This, under the state of Texas, this is not considered to be bullying because it has happened one day. And although there is an imbalance of power and she did push her down, so that meant that it was physical, because in the state of Texas, um, cyberbullying is the only way that a school needs to be involved if it has happened outside of school. So cyberbullying, only the school gets involved if it's cyberbullying. If it is bullying done outside of the campus by the state, they don't need to get involved. So this is considered conflict under the state of Texas. So that brings me to giving you guys more details on what it is that cyberbullying entails. So this is the most common kind of bullying, and this is just an electronic version of bullying that can be punishable by law, and I will get into those details. It occurs when individuals engaged in bullying using any electronic communication, of course, a phone, computer, tablet, gaming console, or camera. So these are some ways that this can happen. It can happen by, of course, mean messages, spreading rumors, threats of harm, which also has its own consequence, and taking or sending embarrassing or inappropriate images. Now, when I go into schools and I talk about these images, I make sure to make it very well aware that if students are taking pictures of other students without their consent, it is considered cyberbullying. This is something that this generation does often, and some of them may do it without the harmful intention, without it being malicious, but others do it with that intention. That's why it's so important for me to make that well aware, especially nowadays where AI is so easy to use and photoshopping is something big that this generation is also into. So I just make it very known how important it is for them to know that this is not okay and that you are not allowed to take pictures of others without their consent. So here are some signs to look for when it comes to a student being cyberbullied. It, of course, entails avoiding social situations. They don't even want to pick up their phone anymore. They don't know what to expect, which means that they're getting nervous when they're getting a message. They're getting changes in their diet and they have very secretive online activity. And these are the effects of it psychologically. So, anxiety, depression, of course, they're going to get low self esteem. They're going to have thoughts of self harm, substance use, and aggression. These are all things that you want to look out for. These are all things that it is important to keep in mind that cyberbullying can lead to, because cyberbullying can happen at any time of the day consistently, and it can be more than one bully targeting them. And so all of that can really just pile up their emotion. It can overwhelm them. They don't know what to expect. They're living in fear. So you just want to make sure that you know what these consequences are. And notice definitely the things in their behavior, their appetite, especially their appearance and language and their routines. It can definitely um, affect how they're living on a day to day basis. So here are some effects of the bullying that are physical. We hear a lot of cases where some kids have sleep disorders. They can't sleep right. They're always anxious to know if they're going to receive another text message, another comment. They get a lot of headaches. They get dizziness. They get chronic pain. And not only that, but it does increase a cortisol level. If you guys are aware what that is, it's a stress hormone in the body, which that happens when something significant or stressful happens in their lives. So that can affect their immune system and their hormones. Negative impacts on school performance, especially academic wise. A student is not going to want to attend school where their bullies are. So it is going to impact them. It's going to have a negative impacts on their grades, on their ability to focus, and of course their ability to retain information because they are not focused on their schoolwork. They are focused on when they will be targeted next, on what they're going to hear next. This is what their main focus is at this time. And so here are just some more factors on the victim. This is gonna impact their way of, being able to have relationships with peers. It's gonna cause some depression, some anxiety, especially low self-esteem. When a person is being bullied, almost always are they being bullied about something physical about themselves, some characteristics. So yes, it's definitely going to impact their low self-esteem. And of course, you're going to be perceived as weak. However, these are the risk factors for the bullies themselves because they also have their own risk factors. A lot of these times, these bullies come from homes where they lack parent involvement, or maybe where the parents are even bullies themselves. They bully their own children, so they pick up on this tactic themselves. Maybe they have very harsh ways of being parents to their own kids. And so that is one thing that we see. Another thing that we see is family violence. They pick up on that as well. And they think, well, if my family's being violent, let me be violent with other people. They're harsh with their own friends. And they even like or will encourage violence. So this is what we're seeing a lot. And of course, if they're picking this up at home, then it is more than likely that they are a victim themselves. So these are some protective factors that I always like to tell people is that it is very important for students to have at least one trusted adult or mentor that they can go to talk to when something like this happens. Because if they have at least that one adult can give them tips on what to do next, or this adult can go to the right people to talk about this and make sure that it does not prolong any further. Involvement in school activities, sometimes this will just really distract them. It'll get them out of their head a little bit. So you just want to really get them involved in the community, in school, and make sure that they're taken care of. Now, this situation, David Molak. David Molak, because of David Molak's story, we now have a law called David's Law, which protects students at any education level except for private schools, I believe, but you guys, it does not involve you. So your child is protected by David's Law. Now, to tell you a little bit about David's Law, it entails a story which you're seeing on the screen. His name is David Molak. David Molak was a 16-year-old student who lived in San Antonio. And he was a student that a lot of people wouldn't perceive as a victim. He was well known, he was an athlete, he was involved in activities outside of school. He had his friends, he had a supportive family. David Molak seemed like a pretty happy kid. And so it wasn't until I believe his sophomore year that he began to get bullied. And so whenever he began to get bullied, it was all done cyberly. It was all done through text messages, social media. And it got to the point where his parents even switched him schools. But again, cyberbullying continues online anywhere at any time. So the cyberbullying continued online, and it was all comments about his appearance. It got to the point where he just couldn't do it anymore. And one night, a group of between 5 to 8 students added him to a group chat where they were just all truly, truly bullying him. And he said, "This is it. I can't take it anymore." So he went to his backyard and he took his own life. And he died by suicide in 2016. So, like any parent, his parents were like, well, what are the consequences for these students? There was no consequences in line. So his parents fought for David's Law, which now is the it interferes with the student's educational opportunities or substantially disrupts the orderly operation of a classroom, school, or school-related activity. So, just to intel it, David's Law is it's going to protect your student if cyberbullying is done to your student, to your child. And what this means is that because cyberbullying can be done not only on school grounds, it can also be done outside of the school. Police can open up an investigation to investigate it outside, meaning, yes, they will get involved, they will see what's going on, they will see who is sending messages from what device, from what platforms. They have a fully on investigation. And the school grounds do have to notify you that this is occurring within 3 days. So here's some more details on it. It does provide anonymous reporting for students. So every school has this, meaning every school has a number where students can call and report anonymously. Just like I told you guys at the beginning of the presentation, schools have their own reporting line. And a lot of students know about it. Some do, some don't. And this is why it's so vital and important to make sure that they know this information. It does require parents of the victim to be notified within 3 days of incident. Of course, it allows for restraining orders and other injunctions against bully. And if it qualifies for cyberbullying, it can be a misdemeanor and up to 1 year in jail and a $4,000 fine. So there is 2 misdemeanors. The first misdemeanor is a misdemeanor B. And this will get the bully a $2,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail. And this is the more minor misdemeanor. So this is still the cyberbullying, and they're making these comments, they're doing just some sort of cyberbullying as long as there is proof of it, which is why I tell students all the time, never delete any proof. Make sure you're taking screenshots of the conversations, screen recording it. Make sure you're taking screenshots of usernames if it comes from social media platforms. Take pictures of the numbers if possible. The second misdemeanor is a misdemeanor A. And this misdemeanor gets you a 1 year in juvie and up to the $4,000 fine. And this misdemeanor will happen if there is suicide baiting involved. So that is where we see the more severe language like, go kill yourself, you no longer belong here, no one wants to hear anything amongst that language is what's going to get them the misdemeanor A. Now, this is a grievance process. So this is done more of an informal way. Maybe you hear about, your own child came to you and told you, hey, I'm being bullied, I'm being cyberbullied. What can we do? This is a more informal way of doing it. You email, you call, you make an appointment with the child's teacher, counselor, administrator. You take notes. You have a casual conversation. What's going to happen next? What issues are going to be addressed? And yes, just understand that there may be some things that the school cannot tell you due to privacy laws, because at the end of the day, these children are minors. Now, this is more of the formal way. So if you wanted to take it higher up, or maybe you just weren't getting any response from the school directly, there's a level 1. So file a formal grievance in writing with principal. You may need to request forms from the district, and you may include any supporting documentation. Level 2 would be submit a written appeal notice and request a meeting with superintendent or designee. Maybe the bullying just isn't stopping, you're still not seeing any changes, and you include original complaint and all supporting documents. And level 3, it would just be a straight appeal decision to the school board. So if you do get to that point where you need to do something more formal, maybe you don't even you don't want to go through the process of it being informal. You just want to take it straight head on to the principal, or you want to take it straight to the board of trustees. This is where you would go. You would go to the TEA website. You would go to About TEA, and you would go to Complaints and Investigations. So here's a checklist that you do want to go over. Um, you want to make sure that the incident, you want to check at least one box from each of these. So the incident does not qualify as bullying if, according to law, if at least one of these is not checked off. So you just want to make sure if you want to take a picture of this, please do so. Just give it a second if anyone wants to take a picture so we can move on. So here are some non-bullying crimes. And I do get these questions sometimes. Well, what if a person just comes up to me and just starts hitting me out of nowhere, and I don't know this student? Well, at that point, it would probably be considered assault because there's no repeated actions. You don't know them. Maybe they just had a bad day and they wanted to take it out on someone. Doesn't mean it's right, but there is other ways of, you know, there's other names for them. So like this one, it would be assault. Harassment, it would be something that annoys or threatens, intimidates them, causes fear. And of course, online impersonation is acting with intent to harm, defraud, or intimidate by creating a page, a website, or sending messages in disguise of someone else. Here's some prevention to make sure that not only is a student not doing the cyberbullying, but to make sure that these students are also speaking up, because almost always a lot of these students do not say anything because they're either being blackmailed, they don't want to be perceived as weak, or they have their own reasons, right? Maybe they're just scared. But in order for us to prevent more of this occurring, we have to make sure that we know the prevention steps. So that would be engaging with adults and peers. Remember, it just takes that one trusted adult that they can come and talk to. Encourage social emotional learning, meaning make sure that your kiddos know what empathy is, making sure that they care for one another, making sure that they know what respect is, what healthy communication looks like, and what conflict resolution looks like. And of course, foster expectations for healthy relationships. It always starts at home. So just make sure that you start these conversations at a young age. And these are some things that we always say to students whenever they need to respond to a bully. So ask the bully to stop. Do not respond, meaning don't reply to messages. If they shove you, don't shove back. Save the evidence. Like I said before, please, if you know that your child or a loved one of yours is going through this, just make sure that they are not deleting anything, that you are taking screenshots of every conversation, every text message, every direct message on social media platforms, any picture they have uploaded, usernames, anything possible. Save the evidence. But making sure that they do not engage with that person. So making sure that they just block them, tell an adult, and of course, file a police report. And so if a student comes to you and they tell you that they're being bullied or cyberbullied, please believe them. Please believe them. Gather information, talk to them with empathy. Well, what's going on? Of course, report it to your school campus and then advocate for it. Thank you so much for being here and listening to this. I hope that you gain some new knowledge and information. I will stick around for questions. Do you have any questions? I do not have any stats specific to Cedar Hill. We are a organization that works statewide. I am specifically working with the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So no, I don't have any stats for Cedar Hill. I'm so sorry about that.